Captain Hyunwoo Park stood on the bridge of the UES Nightborne, watching the stars drift past the main view screen. The massive battlecruiser moved through space like a silent predator, its dark hull gleaming under the light of distant suns. At 42 years old, Park had commanded the ship for only 6 months, but he already felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The bridge hummed with quiet activity. Officers moved between their stations with practiced efficiency, their voices low as they reported status updates. The Nightborne was the newest ship in the United Earth Fleet, equipped with experimental technology that most alien races had never seen. But despite its advanced systems, the ship felt small in the vast emptiness of space. Chief Engineer So-Min Lee walked onto the bridge, her boots clicking against the metal floor. She carried a datapad in her hands and looked tired. Lee had been working on the fusion drives for 18 hours straight, making sure they ran at peak efficiency. The drives were new technology, and she wanted them perfect. "Captain," Lee said, saluting, "the fusion drives are running smoothly. We can maintain maximum speed for another week without any problems." Park nodded. "Good work, Chief. How are the weapon systems?" "All green across the board," replied Tactical Officer Jin-Ho Kim from his station. Kim was young, only 28, but he had sharp eyes and quick reflexes. Long-range sensors show nothing unusual in this sector. The Nightborne patrolled the outer rim of human space, far from Earth and the inner colonies. Out here, space belonged to no one and everyone. 3 massive alien empires fought endless wars against each other, treating human territory like an insignificant barrier between their worlds. The Corvani Empire controlled the galactic north. The Zelthian Confederation held the east, and the Vrex Dominion ruled the western sectors. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. To the alien races, they were newcomers, barely worth noticing. Earth had a few dozen colonies and a small fleet of ships. The aliens saw them as primitive creatures who got lucky with technology they barely understood. Park walked to the navigation station where Woo Jin Choi studied star charts. Choi was the ship's navigator, a quiet man who understood space routes better than anyone else on the crew. His fingers moved across the holographic display, plotting courses through dangerous territory. "Any word from command?" Park asked. Choi shook his head. "Nothing for the past 3 days, sir. All quiet on the communications front." That worried Park more than he wanted to admit. The outer rim was supposed to be peaceful, but recently, things had changed. Alien ships appeared and disappeared without warning. Trade routes went silent. Colonies reported strange signals in deep space. Communications. Officer Da-Yun Cho suddenly looked up from her station. Her face was pale and her hands shook slightly as she adjusted her headset. "Captain, I'm picking up a distress signal. The..." Bridge fell silent. Park moved to Cho's station, his heart racing. Distress signals in this part of space usually meant one thing: trouble. "Where is it coming from?" Park asked. "New Busan colony, sir," Cho replied, her voice tight. "The signal is weak, but I can make out some words. They're under attack." Park felt ice form in his stomach. New Busan was one of the largest human colonies, home to 3 million people. It had strong defenses and a small fleet of patrol ships. If someone was attacking New Busan, it meant serious trouble. "Put it through the main speakers," Park ordered. The bridge filled with static. Then a desperate voice broke through the noise. "This is New Busan Control to any Earth ships in the area. We are under massive attack. Repeat, we are under massive attack. Unknown alien fleets are overwhelming our defenses. Civilian evacuation is in progress, but we need immediate assistance. The bow. Message cut off, replaced by static. Park stared at the speaker, his mind racing. New Busan was 3 days away at maximum speed. If they were under attack now, the colony might not survive that long. Medical Officer Hye-Jin Nam stepped forward from her station near the back of the bridge. She was older than most of the crew, with gray streaks in her black hair and calm, eyes that had seen too much death. "Captain, if we're going into a combat zone, I should prepare the medical bay." "Do it," Park said. He turned to Kim at the tactical station. "Jinho, start running diagnostics on all weapon systems. I want everything ready for battle." Kim's fingers flew over his controls. "Yes, sir. Weapons diagnostics starting now." Park looked around the bridge at his crew. They were all Korean, like most of Earth's military personnel. The unified Earth government had chosen to organize military units by cultural background, believing it created stronger bonds between crew members. Park was proud of his people, but he knew they were about to face something terrible. Chief Science Officer Mi Young-kang spoke from her station near the engineering console. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures in the direction of New Busan. Multiple large ships much bigger than anything in our database." The distress signal crackled to life again. This time, the voice sounded more desperate. "New Busan control to any Earth ships. The enemy fleet is massive. We count over 3,000 ships. They're not responding to any communications. They're just attacking everything. Civilian ships, defense platforms, everything. 3,000 ships." Park felt his blood turn cold. The entire Earth fleet had maybe 200 ships scattered across dozens of sectors. A fleet of 3,000 was larger than anything humans had ever faced. Security Chief Dong-Hyun Seo approached the captain's chair. Seo was a big man with scarred hands and a serious expression. He had fought in border skirmishes with alien pirates and knew combat better than anyone on the ship. "Captain," Seo said quietly, "if we go to New Busan, we'll be flying into certain death. 1 ship against 3,000 is suicide." Park understood Seo's concern, but he also understood his duty. 3 million innocent people were dying while he stood here talking. Earth colonies were scattered and isolated. If they didn't help each other, no one would. "Plot a course for New Busan," Park ordered. "Maximum speed." Navigator Choi's hands moved over his controls. "Course plotted, sir. We can reach New Busan in 2 days and 18 hours if we push the engines to the limit." "Do it," Park said. He turned to address the entire bridge crew. "I know what you're all thinking. We're 1 ship against an entire fleet. The odds are impossible. But those are our people dying out there. We took an oath to protect human colonies, and I intend to keep that oath." Engineer Lee spoke up from her station. "Captain, I can give you more speed if you need it. The fusion drives can handle an overload for a short time." "Save it for when we need it," Park replied. "We'll need every advantage we can get." The Nightborne changed course, its powerful engines pushing the ship toward New Busan and almost certain death. The crew worked quietly, each person focused on their duties. They all knew they were probably flying to their doom, but none of them suggested turning back. Park stood in the center of the bridge, watching the stars shift as the ship accelerated. Somewhere ahead, an alien fleet was destroying everything humans had built in that system. Soon, the Nightborne would face that fleet alone. He thought about his family back on Earth, about the colonists on New Busan, about the future of humanity in a galaxy that seemed determined to destroy them. The aliens thought humans were weak and primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The ship flew through space toward battle, carrying its crew of 43 souls into the unknown. None of them knew that this moment would change the galaxy forever. 2 days into their desperate journey to New Busan, Communications Officer Da Yun Cho made a discovery that changed everything. She had been monitoring alien communication frequencies, trying to gather intelligence about the attacking fleet. What she found made her hands shake as she called Captain Park to her station. "Captain, you need to hear this," Cho said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been intercepting alien transmissions. They're not encrypted very well, and I've managed to translate some of them." Park leaned over her shoulder, studying the data scrolling across her screen. The translations were rough, but the meaning was clear enough to make his blood run cold. "This isn't a random attack," Cho continued. "The 3 major alien powers have formed an alliance. The Corvani Empire, the Zelthian Confederation, and the Vrex Dominion are working together for the first time in centuries." Park felt the deck seemed to shift under his feet. The 3 alien empires had been at war with each other for over 300 years. Their hatred ran so deep that they had never cooperated, even when facing common threats. For them to unite meant something had scared them badly. "What's their target?" Park asked, though he already suspected the answer. "All human colonies," Cho replied. "Every single one. They're calling it the final cleansing. They want to wipe out humanity completely before going back to their own wars." The bridge fell silent as other officers heard the conversation. Chief Engineer So-Min Lee stopped what she was doing and stared at the communications station. Tactical. Officer Jin-Ho Kim turned pale as he processed the information. Park straightened up and walked to the center of the bridge. His crew looked at him with a mixture of fear and determination. They had signed up to defend human colonies, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. "Show me the fleet composition," Park ordered. Cho brought up another screen displaying the information she had gathered. The numbers were staggering. The combined alien fleet included over 3,000 warships, ranging from massive dreadnoughts to fast attack cruisers. Each empire had contributed their most powerful vessels to the alliance. "The Corvani are providing the heavy battleships," Cho explained. "Their dreadnoughts are each the size of a small city. The Zelthians are bringing their carrier fleets with thousands of fighter craft. The Vrex are contributing their stealth ships and long-range bombardment vessels." Navigator Woo Jin Choi spoke up from his station. "Captain, at our current speed, we'll reach New Busan in 14 hours. But if this fleet is as big as the intelligence suggests, there might not be anything left to save." Park nodded grimly. The aliens had planned this carefully. They had studied human defenses and found them wanting. New Busan's orbital platforms and patrol ships would last maybe an hour against a fleet this size. Medical Officer Hyejin Nam had been listening quietly from her station. Now she stepped forward with a serious expression. "Captain, I've been reviewing the alien transmissions as well. They're not just targeting military installations. They're specifically hunting civilian evacuation ships." The revelation hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. Military targets were one thing, but deliberately targeting civilians was something else entirely. It meant the aliens weren't interested in conquest or subjugation. They wanted total extermination. Chief Science, Officer Mi Young Kang, looked up from her analysis station. "I'm detecting something else in these communications. The aliens have been studying our tactical responses from previous encounters. They think they understand how we fight." Park walked over to Kang's station and studied her data. The aliens had indeed been watching human military operations closely. They had recorded every battle, every maneuver, every tactical decision made by Earth forces over the past decade. They know our standard operating procedures, Kang continued. They've identified what they consider our weaknesses. Apparently, they think humans are predictable and lack creativity in combat situations. Security Chief Dong-Hyun Seo laughed bitterly from his position near the weapons locker. Predictable? They obviously haven't been paying attention to the right battles. Park understood what Seo meant. The aliens had been watching formal military engagements where Earth forces followed established protocols. They hadn't seen humans fight when their backs were against the wall, and survival was the only option. Another transmission came through the communication system. This one was different, broadcast on an open frequency that any ship could receive. The voice speaking was translated by the ship's computer, but the arrogance came through clearly. This is Fleet Admiral Taemin Yoon of the Corvani Empire, speaking for the Allied Extermination Force. To any human vessels receiving this transmission, you are hereby notified that your species has been designated for complete removal from this galaxy. Your primitive technology and chaotic nature represent a contamination that must be cleansed. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. The transmission continued for several minutes, detailing the aliens' plans for hunting down every human settlement in known space. They had mapped every colony, every space station, every mining outpost. The attack on New Busan was just the beginning. When the transmission ended, the bridge remained quiet for a long moment. Park looked at each of his crew members, seeing a range of emotions on their faces. Fear was there, certainly, but also anger and determination. "Captain," Engineer Lee said finally, "my family lives on New Seoul Colony. If these aliens are attacking all human settlements, we'll warn them," Park assured her. "We'll warn everyone." Cho was already working at her station. "I'm preparing a priority message to Earth Command with all the intelligence we've gathered. But, sir, at this distance, it will take 6 hours for the message to reach Earth. 6 hours." Park calculated the timeline in his head. By the time Earth Command received their warning and began organizing a response, how many colonies would already be destroyed? Pilot Eugene Bay spoke from the helm station. "Captain, we're approaching the outer edge of the New Busan system. I'm detecting massive energy signatures ahead." The main view screen changed to show long-range sensor data. Even at this distance, they could see the signs of battle. Explosions lit up space around New Busan like deadly fireworks. The alien fleet was already at work. "Take us in closer," Park ordered. "But keep us at maximum sensor range. I want to see what we're dealing with." The Nightborne moved deeper into the system, its sensors gathering data about the ongoing attack. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. The alien fleet wasn't just attacking military targets. They were systematically destroying everything human in the system. Orbital factories burned in space. Civilian passenger ships tried desperately to escape, while alien fighters hunted them down like predators. The colony's defense platforms had been overwhelmed in the first few minutes of the attack. "Sir," Kim reported from the tactical station, "I'm counting 3,247 alien vessels in the system. They've arranged themselves in a perfect formation designed to prevent any escape." Park studied the tactical display. The aliens had positioned their ships with mathematical precision, creating overlapping fields of fire that covered every possible escape route. It was the work of military minds that had been planning this operation for months, maybe years. "They're not taking prisoners," Nam observed quietly. "Every human ship they disable, they finish off with weapons fire." The bridge crew watched in horror as the systematic destruction continued. The aliens worked with cold efficiency, moving from target to target like they were following a checklist. There was no passion in their attack, no anger or hatred. They were simply removing what they saw as a problem. "Captain," Cho said suddenly, "I'm picking up a tight beam transmission from the planet's surface. Someone down there is still alive." Park moved to her station. "Put it through." A desperate voice filled the bridge. "This is Governor Han Sol Lim of New Busan Colony. If anyone can hear this, we have maybe 10,000 civilians left in the underground shelters. The aliens are beginning orbital bombardment of the surface. We need immediate evacuation. 10,000 people. Out of 3 million colonists, only 10,000 remained alive." The weight of those numbers settled on Park's shoulders like a crushing burden. The aliens had achieved their objective at New Busan. Soon they would move on to the next human colony, and the next, until nothing remained of humanity's presence in space. But as Park stared at the tactical display showing the overwhelming alien fleet, he felt something change inside him. The aliens thought they understood humans. They believed they had planned for every possible response. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The UES Nightborne dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Busan system, and Captain Hyun-woo Park immediately understood that they were witnessing the end of a world. The main view screen showed a scene of systematic destruction that would haunt his dreams for the rest of his life. 3 massive alien dreadnoughts hung in orbit around New Busan, their weapons firing continuously at the planet's surface. Each blast created explosions visible from space, turning cities into burning craters. Smaller warships moved between the orbital installations like sharks, destroying everything that remained of the colony's defenses. "My God," whispered Navigator Woo Jin Choi, staring at the tactical display. "They're not just attacking military targets. They're destroying everything." The sensor readings told the horrible story. Civilian passenger ships drifted in space, their hulls torn open by alien weapons. Escape pods floated among the debris, some still transmitting distress signals that no one would answer. The aliens had positioned fighters throughout the system to hunt down any survivors who tried to flee. Communications Officer Da-Un Cho worked frantically at her station, trying to make sense of the chaos. "Captain, I'm picking up scattered transmissions from the surface. Most of the underground shelters have been destroyed, but some people are still alive in the deepest bunkers." Park felt sick as he watched the destruction continue. The alien fleet moved with cold precision, following a plan that had been designed to eliminate every trace of human presence in the system. This wasn't a military engagement. It was extermination. "Sir," Tactical Officer Jin Ho Kim reported, "the alien fleet consists of 3,247 vessels. They're arranged in a spherical formation around the planet. No escape routes remain open." The numbers were staggering. The entire Earth fleet had fewer than 200 ships, and most of those were scattered across dozens of star systems. The Nightborne faced odds of more than 3,000 to 1. Pilot Eugene Bay looked back from the helm station with fear in her eyes. "Captain, they haven't noticed us yet. We're at extreme sensor range, but if we move any closer, they'll detect us for sure." Park studied the tactical display, trying to understand the alien formation. The 3 empires had arranged their fleets in distinct sections. The Corvani dreadnoughts formed the core, their massive bulk bristling with heavy weapons. The Zelthian carriers surrounded them in a protective shell, launching wave after wave of fighters. The Vrex stealth ships prowled the outer edges, invisible to most sensors, but deadly to anything they encountered. Chief Engineer So-Min Lee approached the captain's chair, her face pale but determined. "Captain, I've been monitoring the alien weapon signatures. Their technology is advanced, but it follows predictable patterns. Our experimental shields might be able to deflect some of their attacks. How long would we last? Park asked. Lee hesitated. Against the entire fleet? Maybe 10 minutes if we're lucky. 10 minutes. Park looked around the bridge at his crew of 43 souls. They were good people, dedicated officers who had volunteered to serve on the frontier. None of them deserved to die in a hopeless battle against impossible odds. But 10,000 civilians were still alive on New Busan's surface, trapped in underground bunkers while alien weapons turned their world into a burning wasteland. Those people were counting on someone to help them. Earth Command was too far away to respond in time. The Nightborne was their only hope. Medical Officer Hyejin Nam stepped forward from her station. Captain, if we're going into battle, I should prepare for casualties, but with those odds, prepare for total casualties, Park said quietly. All hands lost. The bridge fell silent as the crew processed his words. They all understood what he was saying. This would be a suicide mission. But as Park looked at each face around him, he saw acceptance rather than fear. They had known this moment might come when they volunteered for frontier duty. Suddenly, the main communication system crackled to life. An alien voice spoke in heavily accented but understandable human language. The ship's computer identified the speaker as Fleet Admiral Tai-Min Yoon of the Corvani Empire. "Attention, human vessel," the voice said with cold amusement. "We have detected your presence at the edge of this system. You are witnessing the cleansing of the human contamination from New Busan. We offer you the opportunity to observe your species' extinction before you join them in death." The transmission continued, and Park realized the aliens were deliberately taunting them. They wanted the Nightborne to watch the destruction, to understand the futility of resistance before they were destroyed themselves. "Your primitive ship is no match for our combined fleets," Admiral Yoon continued. "We have studied your tactics and found them predictable. You lack the discipline and strategic thinking necessary for true warfare. Surrender now, and we will grant you a quick death rather than the slow agony we are preparing for the rest of your species." Chief Science Officer Mi-Young Kong looked up from her analysis station with a strange expression. "Captain, there's something odd about their formation. They're positioned for maximum psychological impact rather than tactical efficiency. They want us to see the destruction clearly." Park understood. The aliens weren't just destroying New Busan. They were sending a message to any human forces that might respond. They wanted to break human morale before the real war began. Security Chief Dong-Hyun Seo moved to the weapons locker and began checking the personal arms stored there. "Captain, if we're going to die, we might as well take some of them with us." "Agreed," Park said. He turned to address the entire bridge crew. "All hands, general quarters, prepare for battle." The ship's alert klaxons began sounding as the crew rushed to their battle stations. Engineer Lee hurried back to the engine room to prepare for combat maneuvers. Weapons crews loaded the ship's experimental particle cannons and torpedo tubes. Kim worked frantically at the tactical station, targeting the closest alien vessels. "Captain, I have firing solutions on 12 enemy ships, but sir, once we fire the first shot, the entire fleet will come for us." "I know," Park replied. He looked at the view screen one last time, watching the alien dreadnoughts continue their bombardment of New Busan. Somewhere on that burning world, 10,000 people waited for rescue that would never come. The aliens had made one critical mistake. They thought they understood humans because they had studied formal military engagements. They had seen Earth forces follow established protocols and assumed all humans were predictable. They had never seen humans fight when they had nothing left to lose. "Pilot, take us in," Park ordered. "Maximum speed, straight at their center formation." Bays. Hands moved over her controls, and the Nightborne surged forward into the alien fleet. The experimental fusion drives pushed the ship far beyond its normal speed limits, creating a brilliant trail of energy that lit up space behind them. On the view screen, the alien fleet began to react to their approach. Fighters peeled away from their patrol routes to intercept the human ship. The massive dreadnoughts slowly turned their weapons toward this new threat, but Park had no intention of following standard attack protocols. He had studied the alien formation and found its weakness. The three empires had arranged their fleets, based on centuries of fighting each other. They expected enemies to approach from predictable angles using conventional tactics. "Target the junction point between the Corvani and Zelthian formations," Park ordered. "All weapons, continuous fire. Don't stop shooting until we're dead." The Nightborne plunged into the heart of the alien fleet like a burning arrow, its weapons blazing at every target within range. The battle for New Busan had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans had nothing left to lose. The first wave of alien fire struck the Nightborne like a hammer blow from the gods themselves. The ship shuddered under the impact as energy beams and plasma bolts hammered against its experimental shields. Captain Park gripped his chair as the bridge lights flickered and sparks erupted from damaged consoles, shield generators holding at 60%. Chief Engineer So-Min Lee reported from the engine room through the communication system. "But I don't know how long they'll last under this kind of punishment." The alien fleet had expected the human ship to follow standard attack patterns. They had positioned their weapons to create overlapping fields of fire that would destroy any vessel using conventional tactics. But pilot Yujin Bei threw her ship into a series of maneuvers that defied everything the aliens thought they knew about space combat. Instead of maintaining a steady course like military doctrine suggested, Bei sent the Nightborne into a spinning dive that carried it between two massive Corvani dreadnoughts. The alien gunners tried to track the human ship, but their targeting computers couldn't predict such erratic movement. "How is she doing that?" Tactical Officer Jin Ho Kim asked in amazement as he watched the pilot's display. "Those maneuvers should tear the ship apart." Engineer Lee's voice crackled over the communication system. "I'm rerouting power from non-essential systems to the inertial dampeners. It's not supposed to work this way, but it's keeping us alive." The aliens began to realize that something was wrong with their carefully planned execution. The human ship should have been destroyed in the first 30 seconds of combat. Instead, it danced between their weapons like a fighter craft, despite being the size of a heavy cruiser. Chief Science Officer Mi Young Kong worked frantically at her station, analyzing the alien weapon patterns. "Captain, their targeting systems are designed for predictable opponents. They're having trouble adjusting to our random movements." Park understood what was happening. The three alien empires had been fighting each other for centuries, using established rules of warfare. Their ships moved in formations, their attacks followed logical patterns, and their tactics were based on mathematical precision. They had never faced an enemy that ignored all conventional wisdom. "All weapons, continuous fire," Park ordered. "Target anything that moves." The Nightborne's experimental particle cannons opened up on the alien fleet with devastating effect. The weapons had been designed by human engineers who understood that sometimes brute force was more effective than elegance. Each blast tore through alien armor that had been considered nearly invulnerable. Security Chief Dong-Hyun Seo coordinated the ship's defensive systems from his station near the weapons control. "Captain, we've got boarding pods incoming from 3 directions. The aliens are trying to take the ship intact." "Let them come," Park replied grimly. "SEO, prepare your teams for close combat." The first alien boarding pod attached itself to the Nightborne's hull near the main cargo bay. Cutting beams began slicing through the outer armor as the aliens prepared to board the human ship. But CO had positioned his security teams in ways that the aliens couldn't predict. Instead of defending, at the breach point, like standard protocol demanded, CO's people waited in the corridors leading away from the cargo bay. When the aliens finally cut through and entered the ship, they found themselves in what appeared to be an empty compartment. The alien boarding party advanced cautiously, their weapons raised and ready. They had studied human defensive tactics and expected to face barricades and defensive positions. Instead, they walked into a carefully prepared trap. SEO's teams struck from hidden positions throughout the ship's corridor system. The aliens found themselves under attack from directions they hadn't even considered. Human security officers emerged from maintenance shafts, storage compartments, and ventilation ducts, hitting the invaders from all sides. "The aliens are confused," CO reported over the communication system. "They keep trying to establish defensive positions, but we're not fighting the way they expected." The same pattern repeated throughout the ship as more boarding pods attached themselves to the hull. Each alien team that entered the Nightborne found themselves facing tactics that made no sense according to their understanding of warfare. Meanwhile, on the bridge, communications officer Da Yun Cho intercepted alien communications and began to understand something important. "Captain, the alien fleet commanders are arguing with each other. They can't agree on how to respond to our attack." Park looked at the tactical display and saw what Cho meant. The 3 alien fleets had been designed to work together against conventional opponents. But the Nightborne's unpredictable movements were creating chaos in their formation. The Corvani dreadnoughts were trying to bring their heavy weapons to bear, but they kept finding Zelthian carriers in their line of fire. The Zelthian fighters were struggling to intercept a target that refused to fly in straight lines. The Vurex stealth ships couldn't use their advanced targeting systems against an enemy that changed course every few seconds. "They're getting in each other's way," Navigation Officer Woo Jin Choi observed. "Their formation is breaking down." Park realized they had found the aliens' weakness. The 3 empires had spent centuries fighting each other, but they had never truly learned to fight together. Their alliance was based on mutual hatred of humanity rather than genuine cooperation. "Pilot, take us directly between the Corvani and Zelthian formations," Park ordered. "Make them choose between hitting us and hitting each other." Bay grinned as she threw the ship into another impossible maneuver. The Nightborne shot between 2 massive alien formations like a bullet, forcing their gunners to either hold fire or risk destroying their own allies. The result was immediate chaos. Several Corvani heavy cruisers opened fire on what they thought was the human ship, only to hit Zelthian fighters instead. The Zelthian carriers responded by launching missiles at the Corvani vessels. Within minutes, the 2 fleets were shooting at each other as much as they were shooting at the Nightborne. Medical Officer Hyejin Nam worked frantically in the ship's medical bay, treating casualties from the alien boarding attempts. "Captain, we have 14 wounded but no fatalities so far. The aliens are using stunning weapons rather than lethal force." That information told Park something important. The aliens wanted to capture the ship and its crew alive. They probably planned to study human technology and tactics before the final extermination. But their desire to take prisoners was working against them in close combat. SEO's security teams, on the other hand, had no such restrictions. They fought with the desperate fury of people who knew they were going to die anyway. Every alien boarding party that entered the ship found themselves facing humans who had nothing left to lose. "Bridge, this is engineering," Lee's voice came over the communication system. "I'm detecting something strange in the alien weapon signatures. Their ships are designed to fight specific types of enemies. They don't adapt well to new threats." Park understood immediately. The aliens had built their fleets to fight each other. Their weapons, tactics, and defensive systems were all designed around centuries of warfare against known opponents. They had never faced an enemy that fought like humans. "How long can we keep this up?" Park asked. "Honestly, sir, I don't know," Lee replied. "We're pushing every system beyond its design limits, but the aliens seem more confused than we are." The battle continued to rage around them as the Nightborne danced between massive alien warships like a fighter among giants. The alien fleet was 3,000 ships strong, but their advantage was meaningless if they couldn't bring their weapons to bear effectively. Kim looked up from his tactical station with amazement in his eyes. "Captain, we've destroyed or disabled 47 alien vessels. That's impossible." It should have been impossible. One ship against 3,000 was suicide under any reasonable calculation. But the Nightborne wasn't fighting reasonably. It was fighting like humans fought when their backs were against the wall and survival was the only option. The aliens had studied human military tactics from formal engagements where Earth forces followed established protocols. They had never seen humans improvise, adapt, and think outside conventional parameters when facing extinction. They were learning now, and the lesson was more terrifying than they had ever imagined. 2 hours into the impossible battle, Captain Park realized that the alien alliance was beginning to crack. The Nightborne had done more than survive the initial assault. It had turned the enemy fleet against itself, exploiting centuries of hatred between the three empires. Communications Officer Da-Un Cho intercepted another heated exchange between the alien commanders. "Captain, the Corvani are accusing the Zelthians of deliberately targeting their ships. The Zelthians are claiming the Corvani opened fire first." Park smiled grimly as he watched the tactical display. The alien fleet that had seemed invincible an hour ago was now a confused mass of ships firing in all directions. The careful formation designed to prevent any escape had collapsed into chaos. "Broadcast this message on all alien frequencies," Park ordered. "Tell them that the Corvani have been planning to betray the Alliance from the beginning. Say we intercepted their communications about dividing Zelthian territory after humanity is destroyed." Cho's fingers moved over her controls as she crafted the deceptive message. Within minutes, the alien communication channels exploded with accusations and denials. The Corvani commanders insisted they had no such plans, but their protests only made them sound more guilty. Chief Science Officer Mi Young Kong looked up from her station with excitement in her eyes. "Captain, I'm detecting massive power fluctuations. In the alien ships, their crews are arguing so much that they're neglecting basic maintenance procedures. The psychological warfare was working better than Park had dared hope. The aliens had united only because they feared humanity's potential. But that fear was based on incomplete information. They had never seen humans at their most dangerous. Pilot Yujin Bei continued her impossible dance through the enemy fleet, using every trick she had learned in her years of flying dangerous missions. The Nightborne spun and twisted between massive alien warships, its experimental engines leaving trails of energy that confused enemy sensors. "How are you doing this?" Tactical Officer Jin-Ho Kim asked in amazement as he watched Bei's maneuvers. The computer says half these moves are impossible. The computer doesn't understand desperation, Bei replied without taking her eyes off the flight controls. When you know you're going to die anyway, impossible becomes just another word. Engineer So-Min Lee's voice crackled over the communication system from the engine room. Captain, I've been analyzing the alien weapon patterns. Their targeting computers are designed to hit ships that follow predictable flight paths, but our random movements are overloading their systems. The aliens had spent centuries perfecting their weapons against enemies who fought according to established rules. Their targeting computers could predict the movement of ships that followed military doctrine. But the Nightborne refused to behave like a proper military vessel. Security Chief Dong-Hyun Seo reported from the lower decks, where his teams were still fighting alien boarding parties. Captain, we've repelled 7 boarding attempts. The aliens keep trying to establish defensive positions, but we're not giving them time to organize. SEO's people fought like guerrilla warriors, striking from unexpected positions and disappearing before the aliens could respond. The alien troops had trained for ship-to-ship combat against organized military forces. They had no experience with the chaotic, improvised tactics that humans used when fighting for survival. Bridge, this is medical, reported Dr. Hae-Jin Nam. We have 32 wounded, but still no fatalities. The aliens are definitely trying to take prisoners, which is working against them in close combat. The aliens' desire to capture humans alive was a critical weakness. Their stunning weapons were effective against opponents who followed rules of engagement, but useless against people who had no intention of surrendering. Park studied the tactical display and saw something that made his heart race. The alien fleet was actually contracting, pulling back from the chaotic battle zone around the Nightborne. The 3 commanders were trying to re-establish control over their forces. Captain, Kim reported, I'm detecting massive energy buildups in the alien dreadnoughts. They're preparing to fire their main weapons at our position. Park understood immediately. The aliens had decided to abandon their attempts at capture. They were going to use their most powerful weapons to destroy the Nightborne, even if it meant obliterating dozens of their own ships in the process. All hands, brace for impact, Park announced over the ship's communication system. This is going to hurt. The 3 alien dreadnoughts fired simultaneously, sending beams of energy toward the Nightborne that could have destroyed an entire city. But Bei had been waiting for this moment. As soon as the weapons fired, she threw the ship into a spiraling dive that carried it below the plane of battle. The massive energy beams passed through space where the Nightborne had been moments before, and struck the alien ships on the other side of the formation. The results were catastrophic. Dozens of alien vessels simply vanished in balls of superheated plasma. They just destroyed their own ships, Kim said in disbelief. Over 100 vessels gone in a single volley. The alien communication channels erupted in chaos as the 3 fleet commanders blamed each other for the disaster. The Corvani claimed their weapons had malfunctioned. The Zelthians accused them of deliberate sabotage. The Vrex suggested that both empires were conspiring against them. Park seized the opportunity to drive the wedge deeper. Broadcast another message, he ordered Cho. Tell them we have intelligence that the Vrex have been secretly communicating with Earth, planning to betray the Alliance in exchange for human technology. The lie was so outrageous that no reasonable person would believe it. But the alien commanders were no longer thinking reasonably. Centuries of mutual hatred had been suppressed for the Alliance, and now that hatred was exploding to the surface. Within minutes, Vrex stealth ships began targeting Zelthian carriers. The Zelthians responded by launching fighters against both the Vrex and the Corvani. The Corvani dreadnoughts opened fire on anything that moved, caring little about which empire it belonged to. "Captain," Kang reported, "the alien fleet is completely disorganized. They're fighting each other more than they're fighting us." The impossible had happened. The Nightborne had not only survived against impossible odds, it had turned the enemy against itself. The most powerful military alliance in galactic history was destroying itself in the space around New Busan. But Park knew the battle was far from over. Even with the aliens fighting each other, there were still thousands of ships in the system. Eventually, one of the commanders would regain control and reorganize the attack. "Pilot, set course for the planet," Park ordered. "We need to evacuate those survivors before the aliens remember what they came here to do." As the Nightborne raced toward New Busan, Park allowed himself a moment of hope. They had done the impossible once. Maybe they could do it again. But deep in his mind, he knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would learn from this defeat. They would adapt their tactics and return with new strategies. The real war for humanity's survival was just starting. The Nightborne flew toward the burning planet, carrying its crew of 43 souls through a battlefield that had become a graveyard for alien ambitions. Behind them, the greatest fleet in galactic history tore itself apart in the darkness of space. Humanity had won its first victory against extinction. But the cost of that victory was yet to be calculated. The quantum communication array aboard the Nightborne had been damaged in the battle, but Communications Officer Da Yun Cho managed to establish a link with Earth Command. What happened next would change the course of galactic history forever. "This is UES Nightborne to Earth Command," Cho broadcast on the emergency frequency. "Priority Alpha message. The alien empires have formed an alliance for the complete extermination of humanity. New Busan is under attack by over 3,000 ships. All human colonies are targets." The message took 6 minutes to reach Earth, across the vast distances of space. When the response came back, it was not what Captain Park expected. "Nightborne. This is Admiral Kwang-Soo Lim at Earth Command. Message received and understood. Activating Protocol 7. All human forces are hereby authorized for total warfare operations. No quarter given, no prisoners taken. Humanity fights for survival." Protocol 7. Park had heard whispers about it during his military training, but he had never believed it actually existed. According to rumors, it was a contingency plan developed in secret by Earth's military leadership for exactly this situation. Within an hour, the results became visible across human space. Ships began emerging from hiding places that no alien intelligence service had ever detected. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as mining stations powered up their military systems. Colonies that appeared defenseless suddenly bristled with concealed defensive installations. Chief Science Officer Mi-Young Kang monitored the communication traffic as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. "Captain, I'm detecting massive fleet movements throughout human space. Ships are emerging from asteroid fields, gas giants, even the atmospheres of uninhabitable planets." The truth was staggering. For 50 years, since first contact with alien civilizations, humanity had been preparing for this moment. Every colony, ship that left Earth had carried hidden military equipment. Every mining operation had doubled as a weapons research facility. Every peaceful exploration mission had been gathering intelligence on alien weaknesses. Dr. Yoon Ji Han, head of human military research, appeared on the main communication screen from her secret facility in the asteroid belt. She looked older. Then Park remembered, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. "Captain Park," Dr. Han said, "your battle at New Busan has given us the time we needed to implement the final phase of our preparations. What you're about to see is the result of 5 decades of planning." The screen shifted to show tactical displays from across human space. At the New Seoul colony, massive railgun platforms emerged from underground bunkers and began firing at approaching alien scouts. At the Titan mining station, what had appeared to be industrial equipment transformed into particle beam weapons that could crack a moon in half. Engineer So-Min Lee stared at the displays in amazement. "Those aren't colony defenses. Those are siege weapons designed to destroy entire fleets. Every human settlement has been a military base in disguise," Dr. Han explained. "We knew this day would come. The aliens saw us as primitive newcomers, but we've been studying them since first contact. We know their weaknesses, their fears, and their limitations." The alien empires had made a fatal error in their intelligence gathering. They had observed human military operations and concluded that Earth forces were weak and predictable. But they had been watching carefully staged demonstrations designed to hide humanity's true capabilities. Navigation Officer Woo Jin Choi looked up from his station with shock on his face. "Captain, I'm detecting human fleet signatures throughout this sector. Ships are appearing everywhere." The tactical display lit up with new contacts as human vessels decloaked throughout the New Busan system. Stealth destroyers that had been hiding in the planet's asteroid belt powered up their weapons. Heavy cruisers emerged from the gas giants' atmosphere where they had been concealed for months. But these weren't the ships the aliens had seen in previous encounters. These vessels were sleek, deadly, and equipped with technology that shouldn't have existed. Their weapon signatures were unlike anything in the alien databases. Pilot Yu Jin Bai watched the display with growing excitement. "Sir, those ships are using drive systems I've never seen before. They're moving faster than anything should be able to move." Dr. Han's image smiled coldly. "We've had 50 years to advance our technology while pretending to be primitive. The ships you're seeing represent the true state of human military science. The nearest human fleet consisted of 12 vessels that moved with perfect coordination. Their weapons opened up on the confused alien forces with devastating effect. Each shot from their particle cannons destroyed targets that had been considered heavily armored." Security Chief Dong Hyun Seo monitored the tactical communications as human forces across the galaxy reported their status. "Captain, every human colony is reporting successful activation of their defensive systems. The aliens are being driven back on all fronts." The scope of the deception was breathtaking. Humanity had spent 5 decades appearing weak while secretly building the most advanced military force in the galaxy. Every interaction with alien civilizations had been carefully calculated to maintain the illusion of primitive newcomers. Medical Officer Haye Jin Nam looked at the casualty reports coming in from other battles. "The aliens are taking massive losses. Their fleet compositions are completely wrong for fighting our real technology. The alien ships had been designed to fight each other using conventional energy weapons and missile systems. They had no defense against the exotic technologies that human scientists had developed in secret research facilities." Tactical Officer Jin Ho Kim studied the weapon signatures from the human fleet. "Captain, those ships are using some kind of quantum disruption technology. They're not just destroying alien vessels, they're making them cease to exist at a fundamental level." The battle around New Busan turned into a rout as more human ships arrived. The alien alliance that had seemed invincible hours before was being systematically dismantled by forces they had never imagined could exist. But the real shock came when Admiral Insu Chun of the Human Defense Force broadcast a message on all frequencies that every ship in the system could receive. To the commanders of the Corvani, Zelthian, and Vrex fleets, Admiral Chun said in a voice like ice, "You declared this a war of extermination. We accept those terms. There will be no negotiations, no mercy for surrendering forces, no honor codes to exploit. You wanted to see humanity's true nature. Congratulations. You're about to learn what happens when you threaten our children." The message sent shockwaves through the alien command structure. They had expected humans to beg for mercy or attempt to negotiate. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that had accepted the rules of total warfare without hesitation. Communications Officer Cho intercepted alien transmissions showing the growing panic in their ranks. "Captain, the alien commanders are trying to contact their home governments. They're requesting immediate reinforcements and evacuation of critical personnel." But it was too late for evacuation. Human forces had been positioned throughout the galaxy for exactly this scenario. As alien fleets tried to retreat to their home systems, they found human ships waiting in ambush at every jump point. The three-way alliance that had taken centuries to arrange was collapsing in a matter of hours. The aliens had united to destroy what they saw as a primitive threat. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Captain Park stared at the tactical display as the battle continued to rage around them. The Nightborne had bought humanity the time it needed to implement its ultimate contingency plan. Now the real war was beginning, and the aliens were discovering that they had never understood their enemy at all. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were truly capable of when fighting for their survival. The alien retreat from New Busan became a nightmare that would haunt the three empires for generations to come. As their fleets tried to withdraw from the system, they discovered that humans didn't follow any of the civilized conventions that had governed galactic warfare for millennia. Captain Park watched the tactical display as alien ships attempted to signal their surrender by powering down weapons and transmitting standard galactic ceasefire codes. The human response was swift and merciless. Every alien vessel that tried to surrender was destroyed without warning. "Captain," Communications Officer Da-Yun Cho said with uncertainty in her voice, "the aliens are broadcasting surrender signals. Shouldn't we accept them?" "Negative," Park replied coldly. "They declared this a war of extermination. Admiral Chun was clear about our response." The bridge fell silent as the crew watched human ships systematically hunt down fleeing alien vessels. This wasn't the clean, honorable warfare that most of them had trained for. This was something darker and more primitive. Engineer So-Min Lee's voice came over the communication system from the engine room. "Captain, I'm monitoring alien distress calls. They're begging for mercy, claiming they were following orders." "Following orders to commit genocide," Security Chief Dong-Hyun Seo replied harshly. "They showed no mercy to the civilians on New Busan." The human fleet moved through space like a pack of predators, their advanced ships running down alien stragglers with cold efficiency. The quantum disruption weapons didn't just destroy enemy vessels. They erased them so completely that not even debris remained. Tactical Officer Jin Ho Kim studied the weapon readings with a mixture of fascination and horror. "Sir, our ships are using technology that eliminates matter at the atomic level. The aliens literally cease to exist when they're hit." Dr. Yunji Han appeared on the main communication screen again, her face showing no emotion as she watched the slaughter. "Captain, the aliens are discovering that humans don't recognize the concept of honorable surrender when fighting for survival. The alien commanders tried desperately to contact their home governments, but human forces had been preparing for this moment for decades. Communication networks throughout alien space were being systematically jammed or destroyed. Fleet Admiral Tae-min Yoon of the Corvani Empire broadcast a final message before his flagship was destroyed. To any human forces receiving this transmission, we formally request a ceasefire under the Galactic Conventions of Warfare. We acknowledge that our attack was a mistake. The response came from Admiral In Soo-chun, and his words would be remembered throughout the galaxy for centuries. There are no conventions in a war of extermination. You taught us that when you began hunting civilian evacuation ships. Now we're teaching you what happens when humans fight without rules. The alien fleets that had gathered to destroy humanity were being torn apart by an enemy they had never truly understood. The three empires had spent centuries fighting each other according to established protocols. They attacked military targets, honored surrender signals, and treated prisoners according to galactic law. Humans followed no such limitations. They had evolved as persistence hunters on a world where the weak died and the strong survived. When threatened with extinction, they reverted to their most basic nature. Medical Officer Hyejin Nam monitored the casualty reports from across the galaxy. Captain, human forces are reporting minimal losses while alien casualties are approaching 70%. Their fleets are being completely destroyed. The scope of the human counterattack was staggering. Forces that had been hidden for decades were emerging across the galaxy, striking at alien targets with surgical precision. Every alien military, base, shipyard, and strategic installation was being systematically eliminated. Chief Science Officer Mi-young Kang analyzed the tactical data streaming in from other battle zones. The aliens are trying to retreat to their home systems, but our forces are already there waiting for them. The revelation sent shockwaves through the bridge crew. Humanity had not only prepared for this war, they had infiltrated deep into alien territory years in advance. Sleeper ships had been positioned near every major alien world, waiting for the signal to attack. Navigation Officer Woo Jin Choi stared at the tactical display showing human fleet positions throughout the galaxy. How long have we been planning this? Since first contact, Dr. Han replied from her research facility. The moment we encountered alien civilizations, our leadership understood that this day would come. We spent 50 years preparing for a war of survival. The human strategy was brutal in its simplicity. They had studied each alien empire's weaknesses and developed specific weapons and tactics to exploit them. The Corvani's heavy armor was useless against quantum disruption fields. The Zelthian fighters couldn't maneuver against ships that could phase in and out of normal space. The Vrek's stealth technology was meaningless against sensors that could detect quantum signatures. Pilot Eugene Bay watched as another group of alien ships was cornered and destroyed by human forces. Sir, they're not even trying to fight back anymore. They're just running. Let them run, Park said grimly. It won't matter where they go. The alien empires were learning that they had made a fundamental error in their understanding of human nature. They had seen Earth's military forces in formal engagements and assumed all humans fought the same way. They had never considered what humans might become when fighting for the survival of their species. The three-way alliance that had taken centuries to arrange was falling apart in a matter of days. Each empire blamed the others for the disaster, and old hatreds were resurfacing as their fleets were systematically destroyed. Communications Officer Cho intercepted another desperate transmission from Alien Command. "Captain, the Zelthian High Council is attempting to negotiate a separate peace. They're offering to withdraw from all human territory." "Too late for that," Park replied. "They had their chance for peace before they decided to commit genocide." The human response was coordinated across the entire galaxy. Every alien settlement, outpost, and military installation was being targeted simultaneously. The three empires were discovering that humanity possessed not dozens but thousands of advanced warships hidden throughout space. As the battle around New Busan continued, Park realized that his crew was witnessing the end of the old galactic order. The aliens had ruled space for millennia, confident in their technological superiority and military dominance. Now they were facing an enemy that didn't care about technological superiority or military traditions. Humans fought with the desperate fury of a species that had nothing left to lose, using weapons and tactics that violated every convention of civilized warfare. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one that refuses to follow the rules. The alien empires had declared war on humanity's existence. Now they were discovering what existence meant to a species of persistence hunters who had clawed their way to the top of their world's food chain. The war for humanity's survival had become a war for the future of galactic civilization itself. And the humans were winning. 6 months after the Battle of New Busan, Captain Hyun-woo Park stood on the bridge of the UES Nightborne as it orbited what had once been the capital world of the Corvani Empire. The massive cities that had housed billions of aliens now lay in ruins, their populations either dead or in human detention facilities. The war had lasted exactly 4 months and 17 days. 3 galactic empires that had dominated space for over 1,000 years had been completely destroyed by a species they had dismissed as primitive newcomers. "Final casualty reports, Captain," Communications Officer Da-Eun Cho said as she handed him a data pad. The numbers were staggering. Human military losses totaled fewer than 50,000 across all theaters of operation. Alien casualties were estimated at over 2 trillion beings. The 3 empires had ceased to exist as political entities. Their fleets were destroyed, their governments eliminated, and their home worlds under human occupation. The galaxy had a new ruler, and that ruler showed no interest in mercy or negotiation. Chief Engineer So-Min Lee approached from her station, looking older than her years. The past 6 months had aged them all. "Captain, the new quantum drives are online. We can reach any point in the galaxy within days now. The technology that humans had revealed during the war had revolutionized space travel. Ships that could phase between dimensions, weapons that erased matter at the quantum level, and defenses that made traditional warfare obsolete. The aliens had never suspected that their primitive neighbors possessed such capabilities. Admiral Ji-Hoon Song appeared on the main communication screen from his headquarters on the former Corvani capital. Song had been appointed as the first human galactic administrator, tasked with organizing the occupation and administration of conquered alien territories. "Captain Park," Admiral Song said, "your ship has been selected for a special mission. Intelligence suggests there are other civilizations beyond our current territory that may pose future threats to human expansion." The word sent a chill through the bridge crew. After witnessing the complete destruction of 3 galactic empires, the thought of more wars was sobering. But Park understood the logic. Humanity had revealed itself as a major galactic power. Other civilizations would inevitably challenge that position. Tactical Officer Jin-Ho Kim studied the new star charts that showed human territory stretching across thousands of light years. Sir, we now control over 60% of known space. The remaining alien civilizations are either too small to matter or too far away to threaten us. For now, Park replied. But Admiral Song is right. Eventually, we'll encounter others who think they can challenge human authority. The transformation of human society had been as dramatic as their military victory. The colonies that had seemed vulnerable and isolated were revealed to be parts of a vast military-industrial complex that spanned the galaxy. Earth itself was no longer the center of human civilization, but the symbolic heart of an empire that dwarfed anything the aliens had ever created. Security Chief Dong Hyun Seo reported from his station near the weapons control. Captain, the new crew assignments have arrived. We're getting reinforcements from the Special Operations Division. The Nightborne's crew was expanding as humanity prepared for the next phase of expansion. The ship that had started the war with 43 souls now carried over 200 personnel, including specialists in alien psychology, xenobiology, and occupation management. Medical Officer Hai-Jin Nam had been promoted to Chief Medical Officer for the entire sector, but she had chosen to remain aboard the Nightborne. Captain, I've reviewed the psychological profiles of the remaining alien populations. They're completely broken. Most of them see humans as gods or demons. The aliens had built their civilizations on the assumption that they were the dominant life forms in the galaxy. The discovery that humans possessed superior technology and absolutely ruthless military doctrine had shattered their fundamental worldview. Chief Science Officer Mi-Young Kang looked up from her analysis of the latest intelligence reports. Captain, we're detecting signals from civilizations in the Andromeda Galaxy. It appears they've noticed what happened here. Park wasn't surprised. The destruction of 3 galactic empires would have created energy signatures visible across intergalactic distances. Other civilizations would know that something major had happened in this part of the universe. Dr. Yoon Ji-han appeared on a secondary communication screen from her new research facility in the former Vrex capital system. Her team had been analyzing captured alien technology, but most of it was primitive compared to human innovations. Captain, Dr. Han said, we've completed our analysis of alien military capabilities. None of the remaining civilizations in this galaxy possess technology that could threaten human forces. However, the signals from Andromeda suggest more advanced opponents. The prospect of intergalactic warfare seemed almost too vast to comprehend, but humanity had already proven that they could adapt and overcome any challenge. The same species that had struggled to reach their own moon a century ago was now planning military operations across cosmic distances. Navigation Officer Woo Jin Choi studied the new orders that had arrived with their mission briefing. Captain, we're being sent to the Galactic Rim to establish forward operating bases. Intelligence believes there may be escape routes to other galaxies that we need to control. The systematic nature of human planning was evident in every aspect of the occupation. Nothing was left to chance. Every alien survivor was cataloged and monitored. Every piece of technology was analyzed and either adopted or destroyed. Every strategic resource was secured under human control. Pilot Eugene Bai looked at the flight plan for their new mission with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Sir, these new ships can travel distances that should be impossible. We could reach the edge of the galaxy in weeks. The technology gap between humans and aliens had been so vast that most alien scientists still couldn't understand how human weapons worked. The quantum disruption fields that had destroyed their fleets operated on principles that their physics couldn't explain. As the Nightborne prepared to depart for its new mission, Park reflected on the events that had brought them to this point. 6 months ago, he had commanded a single ship on a desperate mission to save a doomed colony. Now he was part of a galactic empire that controlled more territory than any civilization in recorded history. The aliens had made one critical error in their understanding of human nature. They had assumed that intelligence and technology were the most important factors in determining the outcome of warfare. They had never considered the role of evolutionary psychology and survival instinct. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters, on a world where the weak died and the strong survived. When faced with extinction, they had reverted to their most basic programming: eliminate the threat by any means necessary. The galaxy had learned a terrible lesson about underestimating primitive species. But as Park stared at the star charts showing human expansion routes toward other galaxies, he wondered what lessons awaited them in the vast darkness beyond. Admiral Song's final message was clear. Captain, your mission is to establish contact with whatever civilizations exist beyond our current territory. Make it clear that humanity is now the dominant force in this region of the universe. Any civilization that threatens human interests will face the same fate as the Corvani, Zeltian, and Vrex empires. The Nightborne powered up its new quantum drives and prepared to carry humanity's message to the stars. The ship that had begun this war as a desperate defender was now the herald of a new galactic order. The age of alien dominance was over. The age of humanity had begun, and it would spread across the universe like wildfire, consuming everything in its path that dared to stand against it. As they entered hyperspace, Park looked back one last time at the ruins of the Corvani capital. Somewhere in those ashes lay the remains of beings who had thought themselves the masters of the galaxy. They had learned too late that when humans fight for survival, there are no rules, no mercy, and no limits to what they will do to protect their own. The galaxy would remember that lesson for a very long time.